So, what is earnest money and how much do you typically have to put down when you buy a house? Well, let's go over that real quick. So, basically, earnest money is what legally binds the contract. Okay. It doesn't have to be any specific amount as long as it has to be a dollar amount, right? 50 cents, whatever the case is. It has to be something that you put down on the house. Otherwise, the contract is not legally binding, right? So, that is the reason for earnest money is that it makes the contract binding and legal at that point. Okay, so that has to be put down, and what happens is the contract will be given to a title company. Okay, the title company will set up an escrow account. This is just like a bank account. Okay, but the thing is that in order for any money to come and go from that account, both parties have to sign off on that agreement before they will move any money in or out of that account. And that's how it goes. Okay, so that account is set up, and then you will put the money, you will wire the money, or you will drop off a check to the title company, and that is how the earnest money is deposited. Okay, now the standard amount for earnest money is about 1% of the contract price. Okay, so $200,000 purchase price, contract price, you're going to want to put down $2,000. That's typically what the offer structure looks like whenever you're buying a property. Okay, so that's the way it goes. Now, when it comes to earnest money, there's some strategies you can use. Okay, so if you're trying to entice someone to take an offer over somebody else's offer, you might put more down. Like it's on a $200,000 purchase, instead of saying, "Hey, I'll put down 2,000," you might double it and say, "I'll put down 4,000," or you might put down 10,000 if you really want to stand out. There's certain things you can do in the negotiation process where you put more earnest money down that makes the contract more powerful for in regards to the offer. Okay. Now the thing with the deposit is, if you're selling your house, is that yeah, it looks really good when you get this big down payment or this big escrow payment, but like I said, money is never released until both parties sign off on it. Okay. So even though as a seller, even though there's this big chunk of money they're putting down as a deposit, that doesn't mean that if they default on the contract, that you automatically get that money, because the buying party will have to sign a cancellation agreement giving you this money in order for you to just outright get the money. And that's the way it goes. Okay. So the thing is that once the contract is executed and you're putting your deposit down, you got to understand this, that as a buyer, the more money that you're putting down, the more you're opening yourself up to risk. Okay. So if you put more than the 1% standard, you're risking that money, okay, because it could get lost in regards to that. The seller, if they do not agree to release it to you, then you have to fight for it back, okay, which means you have to go to court to get the money back. It never comes back to you freely without the other party agreeing to give it back to you. And that's why they set up these escrow accounts, so that the money, once it goes into that account, it doesn't leave there until both parties agree to it or a judge basically tells them to release it one way or the other. So that's how the structure of an escrow deposit goes down. Now, there is some ways to avoid this. Okay, so if you look at a contract, you typically in Florida will have 3 days to get the escrow deposit to the title company. Okay, so if you sign a contract on Friday, okay, it's 3 business days. So you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday by midnight to get the money to the title company. All right, so let's just say that, for instance, you are buying a house and you want to do the inspection before you put the deposit down. Maybe you walked the property and you're a little bit concerned about the overall conditions of it. There was some neglect here and there, and you decide, hey, I'm not necessarily comfortable putting down any money really towards a deposit because I'm concerned that the inspection is not going to be so good. Technically, what people do, I've seen it done many times, is they'll get an inspector in there maybe the next day. Like they execute the contract on Monday, and Tuesday they have the inspection. The inspection is completed, and then they get the verbal results from the inspector. The inspector sort of gives them, hey, this property is pretty good. There's a few things here and there, but for the most part, it's a pretty standard inspection. And at that point, the buyer runs over and does the deposit. If you can get an inspector out there quickly, then you can get the actual inspection completed in a time frame before the actual deposit is due. All right. Now, not all inspectors are going to be that quick, but if you can find a fast one to come out there, at least give you a verbal idea of what is going on with the house before you put any money towards it, then at that point you're really only risking $500, all right, which is the cost of the inspection, as opposed to putting that money into a deposit form and having it tied up in a escrow account if things don't go well. And we've been involved in a few disputes. Okay, so if you, as the seller or the buyer, decide that you're canceling, and the other party does not want to does not want to cancel the contract and release the deposit to you, then you have to go through the court systems to actually get the money back. Or if you're the seller and you feel that the buyer defaulted on the contract and they're not willing to sign off the escrow deposit to you, then you as well would have to go through the court to get the actual money judgment to you. So that's pretty much the ins and outs of escrow deposits. So from a buying, just to sum it up, from a buying standpoint, the least amount you could put down, the better, the less risk for you. Okay. So the standard is 1%, and most people are going to want that. If you put less than that, most agents are going to say that's not enough deposit. It needs to be 1%. And that's just standard. From a selling standpoint, the more you can get from a deposit, the better it is for you, because that means the buyer's willing to put more risk into the deal. They're willing to put more meat into the game. You know what I mean? So that's the way it's played. And these things can be negotiated, and it's very good to utilize this tool if you're buying or selling to try to get things better and get more leverage in your favor one way or the other.